Welcome, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm very excited to introduce our guest to you. But before I do, I want to thank some people that we always thank. We want to thank brassandwinds.com. Brass and Winds is where we go when we're looking for musical instruments for our school, Willow Music. They're the finest sellers in the industry, and we think you'll love them. Please check them out at brassandwinds.com. You're watching Truer MU, the truth about music, where we talk to people about the deeper truths about music, and we talk to writers and creators of all sorts. We hope you'll check out our other interviews at www.truermu.com. As you know, I am a member of the Billy Joel Completely Retold group on Facebook, and that gave me the opportunity to get a post from David Brown, who was in the Billy Joel band, about an artist who was a friend of his named Ina Mae Wool. I was curious and I checked out one of her songs, and I was just knocked on my bottom. I was just astounded by the quality of the song, and I had to talk to her. So I spoke with her briefly, and she agreed to come on our show. Let me tell you a little bit about her. Ina Mae Wool is a folk and Americana singer-songwriter known for her powerful voice and insightful, empathetic songs. She has sung and played her guitar and mandolin all over the U.S. and in Europe, from concert halls and off-Broadway stages to festivals, movie soundtracks, radio, and TV. Her albums have won songwriting and performance honors from ASCAP BMI to the Mountain Stage New Song Festival to the Edinburgh Folk Festival. Ina Mae, welcome to our show.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
We're glad to have you too. I was interested in your album called Rewrite the Ending. And what's most interesting about it is that this is the first album you've put out in 18 years. What was the inspiration to return to album making after so long?
Well, let's see. I was teaching. I was teaching um, songwriting, and I'm very good at helping people get started writing. It's something that I've done for myself over and over again, and but I found that as I had students that came back more and more for more different workshops, I was thinking about helping them get their songs out there, and I thought, well, I I probably ought to get my own songs out there if
You
I'm
don't
going
have
to
much
help anybody
credibility.
else do that. What's that?
You don't have much credibility if you're asking them to and you're not doing it right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's a wonderful album. I want to talk a little bit about it now and maybe come back to it at the end. The song that I saw the video of was called Cigarettes and Chocolate Candy, and it's about your mom. Um, and it's an interesting, first of all, your mom's art is wonderful. It's just beautiful. The song is about her life as an artist, among other things. I'm curious, is that art available anywhere to look at, or is the video the only place one could see it?
You know, it's in some galleries, and there is talk of getting it online at this one particular gallery that's based in Brookline, in Massachusetts. And I'm hoping that will happen sometime this year.
I'm an art lover and amateur artist. I don't do much drawing anymore, but I did a little painting a long time ago. I have a appreciation for art, and it's really high quality stuff. She was top notch.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, she was.
Yeah. Do you have any of that yourself? Have you been a visual artist too?
Um, Not really, although lately I've been doing a lot of photography on Facebook, which I've been enjoying. My sister, my younger sister, who did that painting,
All right.
um, is an art she does fabric art and that sort of thing. Yeah.
You the recurring refrain in the song is "She was a rebel, never quite got free." Now, is this something you knew about her as a kid, or is this something you only kind of figured out later as an adult?
I think I did know about it when I was a kid um, because that's part of what inspired me to do music. Because I would say, but why can't you be an artist? Oh well, I have so much to do and I can't really and blah blah blah. And it just always I just thought, well, there must be a way. There must be a way that you can do it. And my career has been pretty much, you know, DIY, kind of in, well, let's find a way. There's got to be a way. We have to have a way. It was kind of like I think to be an artist of some kind was very much approved of in my family. And I wanted to find a way that wasn't competing with my mother, and that I could do art.
You started playing music very early, isn't that correct?
Oh, I started singing when I probably about this time I started talking. Yeah. I drove my sisters crazy on car trips because I would make up songs, kind of oratorios even, like I do the street, I do the names of the towns the signs on the highway. There was one that will live in infamy where I just said West Dennis, West Dennis, West Dennis, 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 and I just did every possible variation until they couldn't take it anymore.
It's funny. Little kids making up songs like that. It's pretty common, but not most of them. They give it up after about two or three. You apparently did not.
Yeah. My mother, who had, taken piano lessons and who always liked to sing, encouraged me. There was once I remember I loved, Peter Pan, the TV version with Mary Martin. And I was sitting on the back porch in our suburban home in Marblehead, Massachusetts, and I was singing that song, Tender Shepherd, Tend, and my
Yeah.
mother was on the porch too, and she said, "Ooh, that's not an easy melody. Here, come inside. I'll show you on the piano." And she showed me. She said, "Well, you have a good ear," and so I got kudos for it, So, and I just always sang at family parties, and they put me up on a table and I sang. I just had no fear as far as being a singer was concerned.
Okay, so it sounds like you were the musician of the family. It's not like music was around you, or were there others?
Well, we sang as a family. Everybody sang lustily. In car trips, we sang. We sang. So and they loved. My parents loved music. My sisters loved music. So I mean, they had some really tasty records. There was the Peter Pan, which we listened to 100,000 times. There was West Side Story. So there was my father loved Gilbert and Sullivan, and he also loved Sarah Vaughan. And we had a record of Sarah Vaughan live at Mr. Kelly's, where she just, you know, it, improvisation from top to bottom was beautiful. And we also had a record of, and Ella Fitzgerald was more my mother's favorite. And we had a record where she did this song Airmail Special for like 17 minutes. And I have to say, as far as female role models, she wasn't making up stories about her life and singing them, but she was definitely composing. She was composing and performing and was totally in control. So,
Is that so? One of the things I was going to ask you was, who was the first songwriter that inspired you? Does this count as that?
hmm, I don't know. Comden and Green wrote that Peter Pan show.
Hmm.
They were pretty cool. Um, and Sondheim and Bernstein wrote West Side Story. So there were just all kinds of songs in the
Yeah.
house.
So you've been heavily influenced by musical theater then, maybe more than singer-songwriters.
Yeah, and then they took us to see Pete Seeger.
Hmm.
We went to a concert of Joan Baez. Uh, I I started to take guitar lessons when I was, I don't know, 11, something like that, and I I I bought a book of Joan Baez, and I learned everything from the beginning to the end. But the thing was, I never really learned how to read music very well, so it was very approximate. So I really was making it up.
Yeah.
I didn't, I wasn't aware really, since there were no like formal musicians in the family, that people really copied things perfectly. And I didn't see any reason to. Sarah Vaughan didn't, you know.
Yeah.
Ella Fitzgerald certainly didn't. So I didn't even know till much later that people learned things very, note by note.
Uh-huh. Well, this is the difference between a performer and a soon-to-be writer. Um, when did you get the idea that you were actually going to do this yourself? Was there a moment when you was like, "Oh yeah, I think I'm going to do this for a living"?
Well, when my guitar teacher got me gigs. Oh, there was also, we were friends with a very musical family, the Smalls, and Mrs. Small's mother had been in vaudeville as a child, and she was still alive, and they would have these musical. So that wasn't, make a living kind of music, but it was just everybody sang. Her uncles were still in vaudeville, and they visited from New York, and they would tell jokes and do songs, and everybody sang, and my Mrs. Small made up songs, just changed the words around of tunes that already existed and things like that. And we did shows. I mean, she started a puppet troupe. She had inherited this collection of vintage puppets, and she started a puppet troupe, and I would come out in front of the stage and play. But then I also got gigs. She helped me get gigs. I mean, I played at children's birthday parties and made money. And I just thought I was a pro. I'm a pro. I played Christmas songs I strolled in the town hall one year. I don't know if I was 12 or 13 or something like that. Probably more like 12. And I had learned, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, etc. And I made, I think, $50. But then Mr. Walkie, was my guitar teacher, got me some real gigs. Like I had a duo with another one of his students, a guy, and Mr. Walkie got us this show at the Hampton Beach Casino. So it was like a few hundred people in the audience. But I wasn't afraid because, the picture window in our suburban home had been my proscenium since and that was just, it was harder when I started playing little coffee house gigs and I had to actually look at people.
Yeah. So what was that transition like?
Well, um, yeah, it was difficult, but at college I started getting audience of my peers, and that was great.
Hmm.
That was small groups, but I knew all the people. But then, yeah, the coffee houses and stuff. It was different. It was different. I was shy. I was shy in those groups. I was not shy when I got on a big stage.
That's interesting. I can see how you could hide on a big stage, and it's a lot harder to hide in a room with 30 people. When did you start writing your own songs, or was that all just part of the same, gradual
Well,
thing?
I had been, not calling it writing, but just making things up
Hmm.
since forever. But I do remember a first song, a blues, when I was a teenager, and the title was, or the first line was, if you've got your, maybe it was the refrain, if you've got your bags all packed, well, baby, why don't you go? There was a blues singer, what we saw on television when I was growing up, who played around in Boston. Her name was Judy Rodman,
Hmm.
and she played guitar and did the blues, and I sort of emulated her somewhat too.
Well, you finally put out an album in 2000, but I'm not sure how far we are from that at this point. Between college and 2000, what's the arc there?
I don't think it's as neat as an arc, but well,
What's the
after
like?
after college, my college boyfriend, who I sometimes played guitar with, um, was in California, and he said that he had a band, and I went out to California. I packed up my hippie skirts and my, you know, big jewelry and stuff, and I and my guitar case, which someone had made for me, because all I had was a cardboard case, and this guy made a case that was like a triangular, and he covered it with like yellow pajama paper that and varnished it, so it was like these little elephants with roses in there. Anyway, so I went out to California and lived in this communal house with my boyfriend, and I thought we were going to start gigging. And I had already, since I went to college in New York, so since I was in New York, I had started getting, a little bit of interest. This one knew that one, and but I wanted to be with my boyfriend, so I went to Santa Cruz, California, and he did in fact have a band, but this band never rehearsed and also had no gigs. So that's a very bad combination. So, and I was getting these calls from come do this recording session in New York and blah, blah, blah. And so brokenheartedly, there was a lot in there, which when I become a better nonfiction writer, it will all be in the book. But I came back to New York, tried to follow through on these various recording prospects, didn't pan out, went back to Massachusetts and started to try to get myself gigs as a solo. And I auditioned a few places, I got a few gigs, and in the process of playing around and doing open mics or whatever, I met this band that David Brown was in. And they wanted me to come and be in their band. I was staying at my parents' house in Marblehead, and they were, an hour away in Gloucester. And I took the train up to Gloucester, and their band was very loud rock and roll. But they said, well, we could do a thing with you where we would do your songs. And so I was like, no, okay, well, try it. So we're sitting out on this field, and the leader of the band said, well, so here's David Brown. He's a fantastic guitar player. And he was 15 at the time. So he was still in high school.
Okay.
And so I'd play a song, and then he'd play along with me. And I'd say, well, yeah, no, but I thought it was going to be, I think it should be more country or something. So then he'd play a whole other treatment, country. And then he'd play something else that was totally beautiful. I was like, okay, this kid can play, So I'm trying not to get too in the weeds here. It's a lot of...
No, it's okay. We got nothing but time.
So the boyfriend in California said he was coming back east, and he was going to put a band together for me. So he got a bass player and a drummer that he knew that I had met before, who were currently touring in the Southwest. And I was living in an apartment with two female roommates, and they, the bass player Dave Lowe and the drummer Sam Earnshaw, came and stayed in the living room and on the couch, and both of them were well over 6 feet tall. My roommates weren't that happy about this, but anyway, but they all said, well. So we practiced and we played. They said, they told me, they said, Jesse, the boyfriend is not good enough. He's really not good enough. We need a guitar player. And I'm like, but, and they said, oh, it's all right. He'll be okay with it. He's going back to school anyway. And I knew that he never practiced. He wasn't a serious musician. He loved music, but he wasn't a serious musician. So I thought, oh, it'll be okay. He could still be my boyfriend. So anyway, they told him he left town shortly after that, and we started, and we auditioned various guitar players, and they said, well, we've got to play with this guy, David Brown. That's the guy. And I was like, no, well, he's 15. He has to finish high school. I mean, in my family, you finish. You have to go to high school. You have to go to college, And they said, no, he's the guy. So we formed this band, and David Brown dropped out of high school, and they started coming to the gigs that I had booked as a solo, and so we just sort of added on from there, and it was pretty amazing. Dave Lowe, the bass player, did have some musical training, so I didn't really have a lot of musical training. I had that guitar lessons, I had a few piano lessons, I sang for him forever, but I didn't have the language to speak to musicians. So, so I was still going out and playing solo gigs sometimes, and I played at this jazz club, Sandy's, in Beverly, and I was opening for a guy named Paul. I don't know if you pronounced his name Pina or Pina. He wrote the song "Big Old Jet Airliner."
Okay, for Steve Miller.
Yeah, for Steve Miller. He wasn't in the band, but he had written that song.
Okay.
He was blind and he played keyboards and he was a fantastic singer. And he called me up on stage. I opened for him and he said, "Come on up." And so in the audience was this booking agent who was connected to a recording studio. And she was like, "What, do you want gigs?" "Yeah, we want gigs." So I guess, we had no money. And and we just wanted to work, so she started booking gigs for us. Like, we played at ski lodges in the summer.
Was it
No,
100 degrees?
you know the
We're
song.
going to
Thank
get
you
to
very
that. Yeah.
much. Yes. Yeah. So yeah, and so I don't even have to tell this story because we
No,
can
no,
just listen
it's not for
to
me.
it
It's for the
anyway.
audience.
Okay.
For the audience.
Yeah,
Tell
yeah,
the
yeah. I
stories.
know. So we started getting a reputation, and we learned some country songs. We learned, "Sweetheart of the Rodeo," and those kinds of, and some traditional country songs. I used to sing Loretta Lynn. He wants to take me for a ride in the backseat of his car, but this Al gal ain't going that far, and stuff like that, and Hank Williams here and there. And but we also did blues. It was like an all-purpose band. The thing was, they booked us for these gigs, and they said we have to play 5 sets. I didn't know what a set was. I was like, well, okay. And we had about 7 songs. So there was a lot of very creative jamming.
Yeah.
And it was so liberating. I'd never been in a rock band before, and that's what this was turning out to be in a lot of cases. We also would break down to just have a trio, and we would play at, Passim. And we opened for all the folkies, and we got into bigger and bigger venues. So got kind of famous around the Boston area, and then the band broke up. you know,
Yeah.
that's a familiar story.
Yeah. Well, so we still haven't gotten to your album. How far are we from that?
Pretty far.
Really? That's okay. Tell me more.
um, well, so the band broke up. Dave Lowe moved to New York. Sam Earnshaw kind of disappeared. Well, by that time we were using different drummers, and David Brown came to New York, and they were playing around, and I when the band broke up, I thought, well, I need a manager. That's what I need. I need a manager. So I got a manager who was I talked to about 3 different managers, but there was this one guy who was moving his offices to New York. Oh, perfect. Because by that time I had to get out of town. I had a boyfriend that I had to get out of town. So anyway, I moved to New York. A friend of mine had a mattress out in the hallway of her, inside the apartment, but she had 2 roommates in other rooms, and then there was this hallway with a mattress that was right next to the piano, perfect, and mattress on the floor. And I got, I started working with this manager. So that did turn out so great, but I hooked up with not in that sense of, well, anyway, I started being an item with this guy who was a bass player. We did duo gigs, and then I had to get out of the contract with the manager, which was a terrible, terrible contract. And so here I was in New York. I was no longer in the New England circuit where I had a name and where you could make money playing bars or playing colleges. A lot of colleges we did. So in a way, it was very freeing because I had never really considered, worked on my writing. I wrote, and so I wanted to do that, and I just got all kinds of different jobs, and my boyfriend was in a band called the Real Tones, which became the Uptown Horns, and they played at the Ritz, and I would get to sing and sit in, and they played at Tramps. They did a Tuesday night thing at Tramps, which was kind of amazing, and they got all these R&B heroes to play. So I got to see Solomon Burke and Rufus Thomas and all these people. So I started doing gigs. I did background gigs, which really was not suited for, but I wanted a gig, so I tried it, and
You mean backup singing?
backup singing, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So see how we can encapsulate this period. Finally broke up with that boyfriend, losing all my musical connections for a time.
Yikes.
And then not too long after, I met the guy who became my husband, also an extremely talented musician. And I was trying to get jingle gigs and stuff. Okay, this ties into the record. And I had still at this point never really recorded. All that, with David Brown and those guys in that band, there was a studio in Boston that wanted to sign us for some kind of a production deal. And we went in, and by that time, we had been playing and playing and playing and playing. So we went in and played my originals, my 7 originals. And it was really good recording, and they played it on the radio in Boston and stuff, but I never, things didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
I was not savvy musically. That would be an understatement. I mean, business-wise.
Gotcha.
So I was, my husband made a demo tape for me because he did home recording, and I was passing it out to people to try to get recording work. And a guy who used to live around Boston, who knew of my reputation there, hired me to sing on a demo for a song that he was trying to get to Bonnie Raitt, and he thought that since I was a bluesy kind of singer, maybe she would do the song. Well, the song didn't go anywhere, but a lot of people got interested in me as a singer from this tape. And there was one guy who had a record label in Belgium. And he said he wanted to sign me for a record deal. And I'm like, I'm not, you think I'm 60? I'm not, and since I had signed a really bad contract with the manager, I was like, not doing anything without a good contract, without a lawyer, everything's going to be. So we tried to find. So he presented me with this contract, this long contract, and I said, no, that's not right. Won't do that. No, can't do that. And I thought, and I thought when he met me, because I was not a baby, and he was like, yeah, okay, this is good. So he gave me an advance. That's how I bought my Martin guitar. And we tried doing some recording with various people producing, and the stuff that I did at home with my husband was the stuff that he really liked. So I really wanted to play in Europe, and I said, come on, you got to get me gigs, and he did, and we went over there just as a duo. But then we were recording the record, and it came to be that he thought I was saying, like, yeah, see, here are these songs, and this is what, like Sean Colvin, Suzanne Vega, Bonnie Raitt, this is what I want to do. And I think, the song that I sang that he heard, the one song, which apparently he had shopped around to major labels, and they were interested, you know, just for the singing. He was thinking big bucks, Celine Dion kind of big ballad, and that's not what I wanted to do. So anyway, so we bought the masters from him and finished making this CD, and that was the CD.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
first of all, it's a beautiful record. I was, you know, again, just astounded by how much I liked it and have listened to it a number of times, and I'm not at all tired of it. It's really something I enjoy. I do want to talk about this record a little bit. The first thing I noticed is that a number of songs, it sounds like you're talking to someone. For instance, Elephant Learning to Dance, Dark Star, Leopard, Devil You Don't. They all sound like you're having a conversation with someone. Now, what I want to know is, are you talking to the same person in each song? Are they different people, or are they not actually real people?
Well, they're they're people,
Okay.
different people. Yeah,
Okay.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Uh, the my favorite song of the bunch, I think, is Dark Star, and I'm most curious about that. The line "I can't fly and you can't swim" that's got to be one of my favorite lines in a song ever. It was just wonderful. Can you talk about that song, Dark Star?
Yeah, I think at the time that I wrote it, I was thinking of my parents. That, but I think mixed in there were other relationships that I had,
Hmm.
um, and in fact, the the bass player who was the music director of the band in Massachusetts, Dave Lowe, was convinced that he was no longer alive. He's convinced that that song was about him. He knew it. It was definitely about him. When I looked at it, I said, "Okay, yeah, it could be about you too."
Yeah. So okay. So not necessarily a person, more of a conglomeration of people. So what's the relationship to the character in the song? What's your relationship to these people? Is it sort of a how they have inspired you? And I'm confused a little bit by the song and would like a little more information about it, a little clarification.
Well, I think that you could crystallize the feeling of it by saying, um, you you're doing something and succeeding, and you want to bring the other person with you, but they can't come for whatever reason, and there's still a lot of love there, but there's just no bridging the gap.
So
Dark, yeah.
Dark Star is a bit of a paradox, of course. Stars are not dark. Is there some significance to the title in that way?
I don't know. It rhymes, you know.
Ah, okay.
Um, well, like a dark horse, like a, and of course, it's the title of a Grateful Dead song, which people have pointed out to me.
Okay. And
Like,
also, I guess it's the opposite of a star who is bright and shines brightly, and a dark star might be someone who is a star to you but is not visible.
or it might be a star that once shined.
Yes. Right. Like a collapsed star, that kind of thing. Interesting. Yeah, the
Yeah.
song has lots of resonances. These are not three chord songs, they're very complicated songs. What's your process in writing? Has it changed over the years? Did they used to be simpler songs? Do you write three chord songs ever?
I do. I do. Um, I,
But none of
I
these
think,
are three chord songs. They're all complicated.
well, um, I am somewhat of a naive musician. So it would be I'll get a guitar riff and I'll start to sing to it. And um, my husband producer helped me at that point. You know, see, the process definitely has changed because I couldn't remember a melody. I would sing it to him. Now, of course, I put things on my phone, and then I can. And also, in the mid '90s, um, I I started going to this songwriting group. Um, this guy Jack Hardy had something called the Songwriters Exchange. Um, he denied that he was the leader of it, but we met in his apartment and he was. And in fact, Suzanne Vega was involved in it before I joined, and then after when I was, and also Sean Colvin and a lot of other people. John Gorka used to go, and he's got a song called Jack's Crows, which I'm pretty sure is about that meeting. Anyway, so the philosophy of that meeting is, which would meet once a week, is that you would come with a song, finished or not. And then if you didn't have a song, you'd come anyway. And you'd play your song and accept what people would say. But the idea was to bring something that wasn't set in stone. Not the first time you came, you could play, as they said, your greatest hit, because then you wouldn't necessarily get any critique on that. But because once you perform things out and people clap and your friends like it and everything, it's pretty hard to accept feedback from other people. So I had been playing in open mics. My husband producer got into a Broadway show.
I believe it's Rent, isn't that correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He was doing all kinds of journeyman gigs, and a lot of everybody said he was a genius. He could play guitar and also keyboards, really both very well. So yeah, I had seen the reading of this play, and I thought it was really good. And he got offered two jobs at the same time. One was the revolving restaurant at the Marriott, which paid a lot per week, and the other was the off-Broadway show of Rent. And I said, you gotta take the off-Broadway show. It's really good, and there's somewhere to go from there,
Yeah.
So we did, and he joined it in like November. They got moved. They went and did the dress rehearsal for Broadway, and because you see, they needed somebody, and it was a four-piece band, and they needed somebody who could play both keyboards and guitar well to take over from the core group. So all of a sudden he was on Broadway, and then he was gone every night, 8 shows a week.
Yeah.
So I started going out and going to open mics and trying to play on my own. And then somebody at one of these places said, oh, you should go to Jack's. What's Jack's? So I started going to the songwriting group. And I guess that's probably the biggest change in my writing. Rather than writing and rewriting the same song 25 times, I started getting a pile of songs. So a lot of those songs come from that. The songs on the first record. Yeah. Where were we? I think
that's where we were. Yeah. Talking about the record. And